Warm welcome to all. Today's video, I'm going to talk about branches of linguistics. Specifically, the interdisciplinary and specialized areas in linguistics. In the previous video, I spoke about linguistics and the core areas in linguistics. So in this video, I'm going to talk about the areas that are interdisciplinary in nature and also areas that have a specialized focus. This is the diagram that I put up in my previous video as well. So I'm showing it here again, and I've highlighted in red interdisciplinary and specialized areas. So these are the areas in linguistics that we are going to talk about today. Not all of them, but some of them I will cover. So what are interdisciplinary areas? You see now, linguistics has got core areas: phonetics, phonology, morphology, syntax, semantics, and pragmatics. These are the core areas. And these core areas of linguistics, they feed into other fields of study. And what has developed is a collaboration between linguistics and neighboring fields of study. For example, if you look at sociolinguistics, this is an association between sociology and linguistics. So the core areas of linguistics feed into an investigation into sociology and society. Likewise, for psycholinguistics, there's an association or relationship between linguistics and psychology. So when I say linguistics, it means all of the core areas in linguistics can feed into research in another field of study. Okay, let me continue. For example, now let's look at sociolinguistics. This area of linguistics studies the relationship between language and society, especially language variation, as a result of factors like region and social factors. So as a result of regional factors, meaning different parts of a region, for instance, in Malaysia, we have got 13 states. Every state is a region by itself, and we have different varieties of a language being spoken in these different regions. So in Malaysia, we have the Malay language, and if you go into the different regions, you will have different dialects of the Malay language. So that's what sociolinguistics looks at. It looks at language variation that comes about as a result of a regional factor or a social factor. So this gives rise to dialects, accents, jargons, and registers. So for example, we can have research in sociolinguistics about vocabulary. For instance, in English, if I take the word lift and elevator, this is a variation between British English and American English. If you look at syntax, then there can be a variation between British English and American English in the use of the tense. For example, British English often uses the present perfect for recent actions, as in I've just eaten. Whereas in American English, you would hear the simple past, I just ate. So this is not to say that one is right and the other is wrong. These are what you call variations or differences as a result of region. It can also be because of a social factor. Variation can also arise because of that. For example, if you look at relationship between speakers, as a result of social position, as in higher and lower social positions, for example, when you speak to a close friend versus how you speak to a boss. So these are different social positions in society, and therefore when our use of language will differ when we speak to people in different social positions. For instance, you may refer to your boss as Dr. Williams, And when you talk to your friend, you don't say Dr. Williams, you would say Mary. So depending on what the relationship is with the person you are speaking to, the variation would result in the language use. So this is the business of sociolinguistics, to look into the relationship between language and society. So this becomes one branch of linguistics that is interdisciplinary in nature. So we have another area, for example, psycholinguistics. This is also a very popular area in a popular branch in linguistics. It explores how the mind and brain interact with linguistic systems. Psycholinguistics investigates mainly the mental processes involved in language use, and the methods involve psychological experiments and observation. The research examples of research in psycholinguistics is like how children acquire their first language and how they learn a second language. So you see, psycholinguistics will look into how the mind and the brain interact with linguistic systems. So in this case, it's about language acquisition and language learning. Language processing, psycholinguistics also looks into, because it looks into mental processes, so it can look, the research involves language processing. When, for instance, when bilinguals switch between languages, as in translanguaging or code switching or code mixing, what are the cognitive processes involved in this switch? How we generate language from forming a thought to physically speaking or writing it. So this is the business of psycholinguistics, to look into cognitive processes that are involved in language use. And it involves psychological experiments and observation. Another close area is neurolinguistics. This is an association between neuroscience and linguistics. It explores the relationship between language and the brain. It studies brain structures and mechanisms that enable the mental processes involved in language use. So neurolinguistics will look at the brain structures and mechanisms. The methods involve neuroimaging techniques that analyze brain activity. The fundamental questions in neurolinguistics is like, such as localization of language. Which specific areas of the brain are involved in different aspects of language? For instance, speech production, comprehension, reading, writing, syntax, semantics. Which specific areas of the brain are involved in these aspects of language? Then neurolinguistics will also look at neural processes. How do neural circuits and networks in the brain actually carry out language functions? What are the step-by-step brain activities involved when we speak, listen, read, or write? So you see, neurolinguistics is looking at brain structures and mechanisms that enable the mental processes involved in language use. It is closely linked to psycholinguistics, but they are not the same. Neurolinguistics provides biological validation because it does neuroimaging of brain activity, and this feeds into psycholinguistic theories that look into mental processes in language use. So both the areas are closely linked, but they are different. Then another area of linguistics is like anthropological linguistics. Here you get a relationship between anthropology and linguistics. Anthropological linguistics studies the relationship between language and culture. Mainly, how does language reflect cultural practices, beliefs, and social structures? For instance, anthropological linguistics, one area of research is color terminology. Some languages like English have distinct color terms, like the words red, green, blue, and yellow. This is the vocabulary in English for very distinct color terms. But other languages, for instance, Vietnamese and Korean, might combine the colors. For instance, in their culture, in these two cultures, you have the word gru, which is the vocabulary for a color which comes between blue and green. And they may differentiate colors differently from English. So the word gru, for instance, is not a vocabulary that you find in English, because English does not see a color between blue and green. Blue and green would be the vocabulary within English, and these are distinctly different colors. Russian has distinct basic terms, for instance, for light blue. So Russian culture differentiates between light blue and dark blues, treating them as separate colors rather than shades of one color. So they have vocabulary for light blue and they have a vocabulary for dark blue. But these terms do not exist in the English language. For the English language, blue is blue. If you say light blue, then you would have, you do not have a separate term for light blue and for dark blue. So they are seen as shades of one color. But in the Russian culture, they are seen as separate colors rather than the same color. So this becomes the work that is that anthropological linguistics looks into, the relationship between language and culture, how language reflects culture, beliefs, and social structures. Okay, then there's philosophical linguistics, which is an interaction between philosophy and linguistics. Philosophical linguistics delves into deeper, more abstract questions about language itself. For instance, like they ask questions like, what is truth? How is truth expressed in language? What's the relationship between language and thought? Does language shape our thoughts, or do our thoughts shape language? The questions are abstract and deep because it links to philosophy. Then there's computational linguistics, which is the association between computer science and linguistics. And this includes AI and machine learning. Its aim is to enable computers to generate human language in a way that is intelligent and useful. That is the concern of computational linguistics. For instance, if we use Google Translate to convert a Malay sentence into English, computational linguistics is at play. The system analyzes the Malay sentence grammatical structure and meaning, then generates an equivalent English sentence. So for the machine to be able to do the translation, input from linguistics is necessary for understanding the system of the language, both English language and Malay language. So computational linguistics uses input from linguistics, feeds it into the computer, and comes up with models, formulas, ways, to help the computer to generate human language. So that's how we got machine translation through Google Translate. So others would be like artificial intelligence and machine learning. These are all areas that come from computational linguistics. So linguistics has got a very important role to play in these areas, which is why there's an association with a neighboring field of study. You got these interdisciplinary branches of linguistics. Then there's historical linguistics, which studies how languages change over time, tracing their evolution and relationships. For instance, research that examines how Old English evolved into modern English, or how Romance languages originated from Latin. This goes into history. Now, other than interdisciplinary areas of linguistics, There are also specialized areas of linguistics, and one example is applied linguistics. This is a branch of linguistics that looks at possible application of linguistic theories and findings to solve language-related problems in the real world in order to improve everyday living. So applied linguistics comes from the word applied, where linguistics is applied to solve real problems, language-related problems in the real world. Sometimes it is called practical linguistics because linguistics has got a practical application in the real world to solve a problem. The problem has to be a language-related problem. So it draws from the core areas of linguistics: phonetics, phonology, morphology, syntax, semantics, pragmatics. It draws from the core areas in linguistics and it helps to solve real problems in the real world. And in solving these problems, applied linguistics may also draw knowledge from other fields like education, psychology, sociology, computer science, and law. So they also draw from other fields in solving problems in the real world. One example of applied linguistics is clinical linguistics. Clinical linguistics is an association between medicine and linguistics, and this is a subfield of applied linguistics that focuses on the application of linguistic theories, methods, and findings to study and treat language disorders and language disabilities. For instance, when a child with a speech disorder may simplify consonant clusters. For example, the child may say poon for spoon. So the pronunciation has been simplified by the child. A clinical linguist identifies this as a phonological process, and the therapy could include minimal pairs, contrasting minimal pairs as a therapy to help the child overcome this speech disorder. So this is the application of linguistics in medicine to treat language disorders or disabilities. Another example is, for instance, a person with aphasia may have telegraphic speech. For instance, he or she may say walk dog instead of I will walk the dog, highlighting syntactic and morphological impairments. And a clinical linguist may include therapy that involves practicing sentence construction drills as therapy to help overcome the problem with aphasia. So this is where linguistics, you can see the application of linguistics in medicine in order to solve language-related problems in the real world. Okay. Another example of applied linguistics is forensic linguistics. This is another subfield of applied linguistics that focuses on the application of linguistic knowledge, methods, and insights into the legal system. It involves analyzing language as evidence in criminal and civil investigations, court proceedings, or other legal contexts. Forensic linguists act as expert witnesses, providing objective scientific opinions based on written or spoken language. So forensic linguists will analyze written and spoken language in the context of the legal system and provide objective scientific opinions, for instance, in court proceedings, in investigations, and any other legal context. I have an example here. For instance, in determining authorship, let's say we are talking about a disputed text, for instance, a ransom note, or a threatening letter, or a suicide note, can also be social media posts and emails. We want to determine the authorship. So this forensic linguistics can have a role here, where forensic linguistics can be used to analyze the text for idiolect. Idiolect is an individual dialect which is associated to individuals because every individual has got a unique linguistic fingerprint, a unique way of writing or a unique way of speaking. So if we are talking about a written text, so now we want to determine what is the authorship of this text. Forensic linguistics can have a role here because the analysis of the text can point to idiolect. Okay, for instance, the forensic linguist can analyze features like vocabulary choice, spelling patterns, grammatical structures, punctuation habits, use of slang or jargon, typical ways of greeting and signing off, or even common errors which are done by the author. All these can be the focus in establishing the linguistic idiolect of a person. So a forensic linguist might compare the linguistic features of the anonymous text, for example, either emails or suicide notes or other examples, writing samples from the suspects. And the suspects, if the suspects consistently use a specific, they consistently use a specific feature, for instance, it could be a misspelling or an idiom or a grammatical structure or a vocabulary, then this can be used to establish the case of a suspect's authorship. So there would be methods involved in forensic linguistics. But this is one example of applied linguistics. In the real world, we use linguistics to solve a language-related problem. Corpus linguistics is another specialized area in linguistics. Okay, it is not defined by application of linguistic study, like applied linguistics involves application of linguistics. But corpus linguistics is not application, it is methodology used for analyzing languages. A corpus is a collection of authentic language material. So it is a collection of language material. Often the database has to be big for it to be called a corpus, and it is often in the form of machine-readable databases. So corpus linguists are interested in actual language use. So actual language use is collected and form a large database which is machine-readable. So that becomes a method. For example, linguists can search these large corpora for occurrences of a certain linguistic feature and interpret both the number of occurrences, meaning frequency, as well as the context in which such a feature occurs. So this becomes corpus linguistic because methodology involved where you have to establish a large corpus, and using that large corpus, you can now do a search for a particular linguistic or language feature, the occurrence of the language feature in terms of frequency and also the context in which that particular language feature occurs. For instance, in report writing, thesis writing, journal writing, what are the features used by native speakers versus non-native speakers and so forth. Do you see? So you need to have a corpora, and corpus linguistics is the methodology. So this becomes also a branch of linguistics which is specialized in nature. So this is again the diagram that I showed you at the beginning of this video. Okay, I've talked about interdisciplinary and specialized areas. In an earlier video, I talked about the core areas. Now in the next video with you, I will do the intradisciplinary areas. So this will be a separate video. I will put it up soon. These are my references for this video. So I hope you found this session useful. Please do like and subscribe to my channel. I appreciate your participation, and I look forward to comments that you can give for me to improve my videos, and also for subsequent future videos that you want me to put up. Just give me a topic and I will look into it and do a video for you. Thank you and good day. Stay safe. Take care. Bye for now.